Not another crypto video. I bet he's gonna talk about Bitcoin again. So in today's video, once and for all, I wanna prove to everyone that they were right. So just the other day, I was thinking, if I had to start from scratch, if I had cash, but I was wondering, what should I invest my money into? Stocks, real estate, cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, what would be the fastest path to $1 million? Spoiler alert, the fastest way would be really if you could just pluck money out of thin air and you could just materialize it out of nowhere like that. That would be the fastest, but I realize not everybody wants to sell their soul, so the second fastest is to invest in Bitcoin. Now, I've seen a ton of videos talking about Bitcoin's price going to the moon, and they look at things like the logarithmic price patterns and stock to flow models, but that gets very complicated. So in today's video, I wanted to approach it from a different perspective and show you why I think if you want to become a millionaire, if that's something that you're into, that investing in Bitcoin is going to be the fastest path to getting you there, because there's something that's been really exciting that's been happening in Bitcoin, and it happened just this week, and no one's really talking about it. So I'm excited. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the $1 million video. All right, now that we're warmed up, let's talk about why Bitcoin is the fastest path to $1 million. But first, I just want to quickly say that this video is not a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm not making this video so I can get your email by downloading my free ebook so you could buy my course. I'm not selling anything. The reason that I'm making this video is because I was inspired by the Bitcoin convention that I went to in Miami. And unfortunately, I didn't get to film any of it because I don't want to be that guy that's sticking his camera in people's faces. But if you didn't go, just know that you didn't miss much other than the cool people that went there and the awesome businesses that are being built on top of Bitcoin, and also this.
All right, I don't know what to...
Yeah, that happened. So first, let's get into some quick and dirty math, and then we'll get into some really exciting things that have happened with Bitcoin because it's huge. So I was looking at a video with Kevin O'Leary, who is one of the investors on the TV series hit show Shark Tank. And in his video, he was talking about how he thinks Bitcoin will beat the S&P 500 index by 400 basis points. And that really got me thinking, why do we use basis points? It's gonna win by 400 basis points. You mean 4%? Yeah. Remember, the S&P 500 is one stock that represents 500 companies. So it's kind of a good measure or a proxy of the US stock market of the top performing companies. And that one stock is expected to give you a rate of return of around 7 to 10% per year. Now, Kevin thinks that Bitcoin will beat the S&P 500 by an additional 4%, giving us a rate of return of anywhere between 11 to 14%. Now, I agree with Kevin, and I think Bitcoin will beat stocks, but I disagree with him on how much, because I think he's being overly conservative. Realistically, I think Bitcoin will beat the S&P 500 by at least 9 to 10%, so twice as much as the S&P 500. And if I was to really put on my moon boy hat, I think Bitcoin will reach $500,000 per coin before the end of this decade. And let's just imagine you bought one whole Bitcoin at $37,000. And let's assume that 9 years from today, at the exact same time, that one Bitcoin became worth $500,000. That is a rate of return of 1,251%. Now, if you annualize that, don't analyze numbers, very different. If you annualize that, that's a rate of return of 33.5% per year, which is a little over triple that of the S&P 500. Now, let's assume that instead of buying one Bitcoin, you bought two. That would make you a millionaire in this example by 2030. But let's imagine that instead of buying the two Bitcoins, you bought $74,000 worth, which is roughly the price of two Bitcoins today, into the S&P 500. When would you become a millionaire? In this case, you would become a millionaire in the year 2047, which is roughly 17 years after you would become a millionaire with Bitcoin. Now, I know if you're watching this video and you're not into Bitcoin, you're like, another Moon Boy prediction video. This guy's out of touch. He's gonna lose all his money. So let me just break it down for you and tell you why I think what I think, because there's been some huge developments in Bitcoin recently that I think is going to be the tipping point of the fireworks that you're gonna see this decade. The biggest piece of news that crypto has ever had, and believe it or not, it happened just this week. And this is something that's bigger than the issuance of bonds on the Ethereum blockchain, bigger than Elon and Tesla buying Bitcoin, and no one is talking about it. But it's something I recently mentioned on the Millennial Money podcast, which is what could happen to Bitcoin if a country outside of the regular financial system of using currencies like the dollar, the yen, the British pound, the euro, what would happen to Bitcoin if one of those countries adopted Bitcoin as one of its national currencies? And peeps, it happened at the Bitcoin conference, because the first country to ever adopt Bitcoin as a national currency, drumroll, was El Salvador. President Nayib Bukele, Mr. B, announced that the citizens of El Salvador will finally be able to buy, sell, denominate in, and pay their taxes with Bitcoin. And the best part about it is that they won't pay any capital gains taxes on that money, which means if you're a citizen of El Salvador and you want to buy something at the grocery store with Bitcoin, well, if it doubled in value since holding it and you just used it, you would not pay any taxes on those gains. All of that is huge. And this is more than just a proposal. This is a bill that was passed with a supermajority vote. And you'll be able to do all that as a citizen of El Salvador in just 3 months' time. This is massive, and here's why. El Salvador has a population of 6.5 million people. Imagine all the businesses that are gonna start using Bitcoin and start accepting it. And get this, of these 6.5 million people, roughly 70% of them don't have a bank account. And if 1% of Bitcoin's current market cap gets invested into El Salvador can increase its GDP by something like 25%, which is huge. So not only does it give an advantage to its citizens as a way of meaningfully saving money and increasing their net worth and their wealth, it also gives the country a huge economic advantage that I think other countries will start to notice and start following in their footsteps. If you're thinking to yourself, who cares about El Salvador? It's not a major economic player. But that's exactly what people said when the first businesses, the tiny businesses of the world started accepting Bitcoin. People said, who cares? They won't make a dent. Wake me up when the first publicly traded companies start accepting Bitcoin and adding to their balance sheets, which is exactly what ended up happening. Here we are in 2021, and Tesla, MicroStrategy, Twitter, Square, PayPal, and this is just one of the dominoes in a long line of dominoes that are gonna start to fall as the world notices. Which is funny because the media really hasn't noticed and the price really hasn't moved. Although to be fair, if the media did publish this, they'd probably say something like, money laundering scheme to fund drugs and boil oceans approved in El Salvador. I don't know, maybe I'm just jaded, but I really think that this is trillions upon trillions of dollars worth of potential that is going to flow into Bitcoin over the next decade. Here's a second path of getting there. This next part is a little tidbit fact that I picked up from Tyler Winklevoss from the Bitcoin conference, which is that there are 50,000 publicly traded companies in the world. Now, of those 50,000 companies, can you guess how many of them own Bitcoin on their balance sheet? Is it 10,000, 5,000, 1,000? You are the weakest link. Goodbye. It's actually 32 companies. 32 that own Bitcoin. That represents 0.064% of the world's corporations, which is less than 1/10 of 1%. The question then becomes, will that number go down or up over time? What happens to Bitcoin's price when 100 companies own it? What about 1,000? What about 10,000? What happens to the price? Because I think this path alone could push us way beyond $500,000. And this is on top of the countries that are about to start buying. The next path is something that Kevin O'Leary talked about, which is the hedge funds. You know, those evil money people that manipulate our stonks. Obviously, not all hedge funds are bad. Most hedge funds are just made up of pools of money from mostly wealthy people. And if you wanted to be part of a hedge fund, all you have to do is have $1 million net worth and make over $200,000 a year. Oh, is that it? That money is then pulled together and invested by someone else. And hedge funds have access to a ton of money. In 2020 alone, it was reported that they have access to something like $3.8 trillion. So I think it's safe to assume that in 2021, they have a little over $4 trillion, which begs the question, why haven't they got into Bitcoin? Some have, but most haven't. And a lot of them have a ton of cash sitting on the sidelines waiting to be invested. And the reason why most have not jumped into Bitcoin is because of something called ESG. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, and it's a way of rating investments based on how ethical and sustainable they are. Believe it or not, I actually made a video about this like 8 months ago, pleading Robinhood to please include this as a standard feature in their app. That way, we as investors know exactly the impact that our money is having on the environment. I even made a petition on change.org. We almost have 1,000 signatures, so I'd love it if you could help me out. I'll leave a link down in the description below the video. But this whole ESG thing's been around for a while. And it wasn't until recently that it's become all the rage on Wall Street. And the reason for that is because these hedge fund managers don't want to lose clients. You're toxic, bro. None of them want to have that finger pointed at them and accuse them of not being good for the environment. So they don't want to lose clients. Another reason is because all of these groups, from hedge funds, pension funds, corporations, sovereign money funds, all of them have these committees or groups of people that use things like ESG as a basic filter to list which investments could even be considered for their money. And if those investments don't meet those compliance standards, then guess what? Those don't get bought. So back to Bitcoin. Why is that related to ESG? They're related because as soon as the miners of Bitcoin come together to formulate some kind of a green energy sustainable mining plan, they'll come to realize just how much this shift in the narrative to be more positive will impact the price of Bitcoin. It'll be like unlocking a new skill, corporate money. Oh, I get to make 200% yearly returns and invest in an asset that's ethical? Yes, please. So in a way, I'm actually really happy that Elon highlighted the problem of Bitcoin's mining because I think it's gonna really help us get that kick in the butt to get us to the moon. And mayhaps in the future, Tesla found their own solution in the form of a solar panel that we can put inside our home where we can become sustainable, clean energy miners for Bitcoin. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I can totally see how Elon can pull the ace out of the sleeve. Doesn't make sense, I'm not wearing sleeves. Now, all of these paths individually can take us to the multiple trillions of dollars or several $100,000 per Bitcoin, but together, easily over $1 million per Bitcoin. But either way, the best way I like to think about it is sort of like this. Remember, there's 42 million millionaires out there in this world, and there's not enough Bitcoin for each of them to own one. So if having $1 million net worth is something that you're into, then I think the answer is pretty obvious. Come to Las Vegas and I'll show you how to card count Rain Man style. Just kidding, not financial advice, don't do that. But I think it's pretty obvious that Bitcoin will outpace stocks, bonds, real estate, and everything in between. And if you're wondering, when do I buy Bitcoin? Today, it's at 40,000, yesterday it was at 37,000, last week it was at 30. And I think the answer to that question is, it doesn't matter. As long as you dollar cost average into it to reduce your stress, in the long term, while it may seem like it's a lot of money today, in the long term in relation to where we're going, it's very little. Does that mean I will invest all my money into Bitcoin? Yes. No, of course not. There's a lot of things I don't know that I don't know. There's a lot of risks that we may not even be thinking about today. But either way, if becoming a millionaire is something that you really want to do, then I think becoming a millionaire is pretty much inevitable if you hold some Bitcoin. As always, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, hit the bell button, because I'm desperate, and don't forget to grab up to $250 worth of free Bitcoin using this BlockFi link right here, blockfi.com/Andrei. Go get 2 free stonks with Webull. Using the link down below, when you deposit $100, you can get up to 2 free stocks. Once you get them, go track them automatically with the spreadsheet link down below in my Patreon. Love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you back here on Monday, Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.